Everyone, I hope you're well. So yesterday there was an update which reverted the armor changes, and this is big. This is well needed. I'm really happy to see it, and it just feels so great now. It really does feel like Apex again. Now that means that a lot has changed in terms of the meta. Before it was all about, you know, high kill weapons, high damage weapons, high DPS weapons, and that is still true of course, but it's kind of going to be leaning a little bit more towards weapons that have larger magazine sizes and, you know, that are going to be able to maintain doing more damage for longer without reloads now. So the rankings have changed a little bit. So I thought instead of just doing the top 10 weapons, I'll do every weapon ranked from best to worst in the game, or from worst to best, and you know, along the way we'll see some changes compared to my previous top 10 weapon video. So we'll start right from the very top. At number 21 we have the L-Star. Now yes, this may be questionable to some people. You know, the L-Star actually does pretty decent damage. It's not the best DPS in the game since a nerf happened to it, and you know, yes, it can do some decent damage, but the thing is, it's just clunky. And the reason why is because when you shoot, you really cannot see what's going on. The weapon just, it has issues, you know. There are higher DPS weapons such as the SMGs, there are higher magazine count weapons such as the Devotion and the Spitfire, and yes, the DPS is higher than the Spitfire, but just the visibility just makes it a clunky weapon to use that you're never really going to be able to rely on. The only time I'd suggest using the L-Star is if you're playing Rampart, and at that point the kind of longer use time before it overheats is it's manageable, you know. But yeah, just because of the visibility, it makes it really hard to see the L-Star, and for that reason alone, it is at the top of the list at number 21. So next we have the P2020. Now the P2020 of hammer points can be pretty good, but as a weapon alone we have to accept that now with higher level armor it's going to be a little bit harder to deal with. Yes, it does 15 damage now instead of the 14 from the previous season, but you're not really going to want to go against a full health player with say 200 or 225 health with just a P2020. It's going to take, you know, a lot of headshots. So it can be great, and it can be really good paired with a high damage weapon, say like the Sentinel or the Wingman or a Mastiff, but yeah, it's not really reliable on its own. A great weapon, but yeah, kind of falls off when it's on its own. Now here's the thing you'll notice in this list is most of these weapons, even at the very top, are usable to the point where you could do really well with them. The weapon balancing in this game is really good, so don't be afraid to kind of pick up anything that you can get your hands on. So either way, that's why the P2020 is at number 20. Now at number 19, we have the charge rifle. The reason for this is simple, right? The charge rifle allows you to do a lot of easy damage long range, which can be making it much easier to level up your Evo armor quickly, which is really going to be important to getting, you know, a late game setup. You can kind of do that and then drop the charge rifle. So that's the reason why it's ranked higher than the other weapons on this list. Obviously, at number 19, it's not ranked that highly. One of the reasons it's kind of like a decent choice now is because of the ammo change to snipers. You can pick up more ammo, which is really great. This thing now eats 2 shots instead of 1, so that's the one thing to keep in mind. And the charge rifle can kind of be used up close, but it's a little clunky. There are better options, more versatile snipers if you want to go for a sniper. So for that reason alone, the charge rifle is at number 19. But definitely a good weapon to pick up to level up your Evo armor and then perhaps drop late game. Next, we have the RE45. Now, the RE45 is pretty decent. It has a movement speed that's kind of like in between the SMGs and pistols when you're aiming down sights, so that goes in its favor. And it's a decent weapon, especially if you get a good barrel on it. You can do pretty well with it. The recoil is kind of weird. It goes like up and then off to the side. But yeah, with some practice, you're going to be able to control that pretty easily and have a good strafe game going on, so you don't have to worry too much about that. The trouble is the overall DPS on this weapon is far outranked by every other SMG, so you may as well just take an SMG. That small increase in movement speed whilst aiming down sight is not really going to make it worth picking up the RE45. It's not like a traditional pistol. Now with a traditional pistol, when you aim down sights and move, you move at the same speed as if you were hip firing. With the RE45, it's kind of you know, a little bit faster than the SMGs, but not enough for it to be a competitive choice just for that reason alone. Next up, we have the Alternator. The Alternator has a higher DPS than the RA45 and a higher damage per shot, which can make it a more viable option. Now, I'd say this is the kind of weapon you want to pick up and kind of drop for a better SMG late game. But one of the great things about the Alternator, because it has like this alternating barrel system, where it shoots from 2 different barrels, like first barrel, second barrel, first barrel, second barrel, first barrel, second barrel, it kind of allows you to shoot at long range quite effectively without really coming into any recoil issues. You just have to tap fire it like this. So it can be really effective to just poke people long range. And because it has more damage than other SMGs, you know, it has that benefit. So I actually kind of like this weapon, but up close it just can't compete because the DPS is lower. That's one thing that's really going to kind of let it down. But yeah, it's pretty decent at long range. The magazine size isn't the greatest as well, so other SMGs are a better choice overall. Next, we have the Longbow. Now, with the sniper change, I think it's definitely worth considering taking snipers again now. You can pick up more ammo per slot. It's 24 now instead of what I think was 16 before. The Longbow is pretty good at like just peeking people, poking them at long range, dealing damage, getting some quick shots off. It doesn't quite have as much stopping power as the Sentinel, and it's not as versatile as the Triple Take, and I'll explain more about that later. But yeah, the Longbow is pretty good. I wouldn't mind taking this, you know. It's a little harder to use long range because the bullet velocity is pretty bad. As you can see, it's pretty slow. But overall, it's a pretty decent sniper, but not the best. Now, next up, we have the Mozambique. With the 4 shots now on the Mozambique, this does become a pretty valuable choice. What it allows you to do is get enough damage to basically ensure you're going to shred down someone's shields, even with Evo armor, and at that point the hammer point comes in play. Now, I would say that you can do fairly well with a Mozambique, even without hammer point. As you can see here, right, let's just kill this player first. A Mozambique body shot on target does 45 damage, and you have 4 of those. It's a full auto weapon, which means, you know, at like this distance, you can just hold down fire, and you're almost killing players if you hit on shot. Now, one thing that's great about the Mozambique that is different to other shotguns is that it's actually pretty good range. Consider it more like a close range pistol to a traditional shotgun. With some practice, you can actually do really well with this. And make sure you're aiming down sights, because that's when the spread is reduced. As you'll see here, I explain this in a lot of videos, but some people still don't know. The spread is much better when you're aiming down sights. So consider sticking it 2 times on this thing, sitting at like this distance, and you know, you can do some damage. Now, it's got a bit of recoil, so to like really be able to knock a player without a hammer point, you want to be aiming down sights and kind of pushing down a bot a bit. But yeah, take some practice. But imagine you did have a hammer point on this thing. You know, you're going to be doing a lot of damage on this thing. And it's like, that's why it's kind of ranked higher than the P2020. It's because it's manageable now on its own without the hammer point. If you had any other weapon, or you didn't have another weapon, the Mozambique can do okay, you know? 4 shots, a very fast reload, a very fast fire rate. It's decent. And then as soon as you get the hammer point, this thing comes nasty. Pair it with another high damage weapon, and you have a very nasty combo on your hands. Just a simple 2-shot. Very nice. Now, next up, we have the Spitfire. Now, one of the reasons why the Spitfire is ranked, you know, reasonably highly for what it is simply because of the magazine size. Now, if you're playing Rampart, of course, you get even more. But as you can see here, having 55 rounds is kind of mad. It has a low DPS compared to other weapons, but it's quite a significant choice when you want to mow down multiple players, you know, at sizable range as well. Not only that, but the Spitfire recoil recently got improved in Season 6. So this thing is actually kind of like a mid-range nightmare to deal with. I mean, you can just shred through people so easily. If they increase the damage on this thing, I would actually rank it a little bit higher, honestly. I mean, you can see, even if you miss some shots, it doesn't matter. Imagine someone's running in, trying to get to the ring, they don't have much cover. You're just spraying them down, blah, 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 blah. before you know it, they're all dead. Very, very decent weapon, to be honest. Next, we have the Sentinel. Now that the armor's gone back to how it was before, and it only takes 2 shield cells to charge a Sentinel shot, or 1 if you have the gold armor. And by the way, the gold armor is finally useful again. You're able to break people's shields, and this charge lasts a long time. So you can be like, okay, let's break this player's shield here, let's break this player's shield here, and let's break this player's shield here. If you now have a team that you can push with, you're going to be able to go up close. They're either going to be healing or they're going to be low, and you're going to be able to follow up with a bunch of kills, which is really, really great. It's a very powerful sniper. It allows you to kind of quickly change the flow of gameplay, and that's super strong, right? It allows you to really create a push. So, you know, if you're playing a competitive squad or you're playing like coordinated with a team, I'd suggest like getting 1 Sentinel on the team so that, you know, you can break shields and push off of it. Now, next up, we have the Eva, a very viable shotgun. And it's, yeah, I mean, shotguns have always been good in this game. Stick a purple Eva on this thing and you're just constantly pelleting people, get up close and personal, and you're doing a lot of damage. To be honest, it's not far off from being like a Mastiff competitor. The damage isn't quite there though. I mean, the Mastiff can do a lot more damage, you'll see in a minute. That's one of the reasons why the Eva is ranked lower than the Mastiff. But, you know, you are going to be able to do a lot of damage with this thing, and that fast fire rate can really benefit you sometimes. It just kind of falls off in damage compared to the other Mastiff, and there are a lot of other weapons in between the Eva's ranking at 12 and the Mastiff's ranking at 8 that I think that you'd probably rather consider in terms of just its overall power in the game. So next up we have the Scout. Now, the Scout isn't as good as it used to be back in, say, Season 3 and 4, but it's still a pretty viable weapon. And now that, you know, every shot really counts because people are going to be having higher armor values, being able to have a weapon that can pellet someone for 34 damage is quite insane. This thing fires very fast, it's pretty easy to control as well. It's a very viable option, and obviously you have that added benefit of it still being a light ammo sniper. Technically it's a sniper, so what that means is you're going to be able to do a lot of damage long range and have a nice stack of ammo to just keep harassing people, which can be, you know, very valuable. Obviously, as it being a sniper, technically it still has the bad aim down sight speed of a sniper, so that's something to consider. You definitely want a very viable backup weapon to use close range. So yeah, one of the downfalls of the Scout, if it had assault rifle movement speed, then I'd rank this thing a lot higher. Overall, the DPS on the Scout as well isn't as great as a lot of the other weapons. In fact, every weapon in the top 10 list, that's why it's number 11 in the list. But one of the things which is great about the Scout is long range, it becomes less about pure time to kill and more about the damage per shot, because you're not going to be hitting every shot on a moving target at long range. That's one of the reasons why the Havoc can be so great. Now we're getting to our top 10 list. The R301 is first. It has a very decent recoil control. It has a decent magazine size, 28 rounds. But the DPS isn't quite as high as any other weapon in this top 10 list, and that's why it is at number 10 and not any higher. I'd say with some practice you can control the flatline recoil just as well, which I think had a bit of a silent buff this season. It's actually easier to control the flatline now than ever before, which brings us on to the flatline at number 9. So let's just compare the two, right? First things first, let's get a purple mag on this thing. Alright, we've already got one, we need some ammo. The flatline has a magazine size of 30, which is 2 more than the R301. The R301 does 14 damage, and the flatline does 19. So you're going to do a lot more damage per magazine with the flatline than you are the R301, which is even more important in this now new meta where the armor is higher value again, you know? Not only are everyone going to be walking around with level 3 and level 4 armor late game, everybody is going to be walking around with level 1 armor very early on, because it's very quick to level up your Evo shield to level 1, which is an extra 50 health. So definitely something to consider. Nobody has to pick up armor anymore. They just have to get off a few shots, use some shield cells, and they're good to go. So really, the higher magazine capacity is really going to help. The higher damage per magazine is really going to help with the flatline. And another thing to notice is that just overall the DPS is higher, and it's a very easy weapon to control. Now, don't be afraid of this thing. It's of course not as easy as the Alternator 1. It has more sideways recoil. Jumping in the firing range and practice with this thing, and you're going to be shredding people in no time. And if you miss some shots, it doesn't matter. You have a larger magazine, more damage per shot, so that's really good. Next up at number 8, we do indeed have the Mastiff. The Mastiff is a powerhouse. It's a very strong weapon, but, you know, even with a purple bolt, it's not the fastest thing in the world, so you need to be able to be comfortable with hitting high damage shots to really get its, you know, its true potential off. You need to be able to be playing around cover, making sure that you're not vulnerable in between each shot. So, for example, you're going to be like this, bam, bam, bam. But this is kind of situational. You're not always going to be able to be in this situation to do this, which is why there's higher ranked weapons. But yes, the damage on this thing is crazy. It's really going to be important in this new meta where people have more health overall. Just being able to get some nice high damage shots off is going to be very, very crucial. Next up, we have the Hemlock. Now, the Hemlock was a monster with the old armor, but honestly, it's still a monster now. The burst is still really easy to control. The magazine size is a little low, considering it's a burst weapon, but long range, this thing is just nasty. Like, you're going to be just shredding through people. This is with like hardly any recoil control here. There's a no barrel on it rather. It's just nasty. This is the kind of weapon that's going to be like the Scout Mark II. It's that same long-range harassing weapon that just, it's going to get on people's nerves. It really is. I mean, you can do so much damage, right? With some practice in the firing range, practicing the recoil, you are potentially going to have a 2-burst weapon. I mean, that's mad. That's just mad. This weapon is disgusting. And up close, the burst is very good hip fire as well, as you can see. A very, very, very strong weapon without a doubt. Next up, we have the triple take. Now built in with the choke. This thing is incredible. Up close, you can just quickly zoom in and fire like a normal sniper. But also, as you can see on the screen now, we have a variable reticule, which tells us the accuracy of this weapon. So we can just crouch, and we're going to be able to hit pretty easy shots up close. Like this, right? And they're guaranteed to be within that reticule area. So we know if we're going to be able to do shots. Like at this distance, it's basically like a shotgun. I mean, it's not going to be as useful as a Mastiff really, but a really, really powerful weapon up close when you hip fire. And long range, it has a faster bullet travel time than the Sentinel and the Longbow, which makes it a very strong sniper as well. I mean, the charge time is ridiculous. The time per shots is even faster now. I mean, and it had an increased magazine size. So let's say, right, you have your fully upgraded triple take. You got a purple mag. There's people down here running away, getting into the ring, and you're just like bam, 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 bam. Right? You get that first shot off that's charged, and then you just pellet them with bullets. You're going to be causing a lot of problems for people. Next up, we have the Havoc. This weapon has a pretty decent time to kill without a turbocharger, but it is lower than the other weapons in this list. However, with the new magazine size and the damage it gives per shot, it's a very viable assault rifle, honestly. And once again, well, and if you've watched my previous video on weapons this season, you'll know that energy weapons are really strong because they have a very fast bullet travel time. So you can sit here and shoot someone very easily. You can shoot someone as they're zipping along, and there's going to be hardly any bullet travel time, making it very easy to hit them. Yes, the DPS is worse than, you know, a lot of the weapons in the top 10 list without a turbocharger. But with it, it's just a monstrosity. It really is. It is terribly, terribly scary. Next up, we have the Vault. Now, the Vault has lost some places, and one of the reasons with the Vault, which was kind of always an issue, your magazine is going to go so fast. You're going to blink, and the ammo is going to be gone in this thing. So you need to hit your shots, which is, you know, fairly easy with the Vault. But with more people having more health now, it's tricky. You're going to be reloading more often. You're going to be running out of ammo more often. You're going to be in situations where you would have killed them before, but then you need to reload. And that can cause issues. And because of that, I've rated the Devotion now higher than the Vault. It's still an energy weapon, just like the Vault, which means, yes, you have very fast bullet travel time, which is just so beneficial in a game where there's, you know, people are ziplining, jumping around all over the place at long range. Yeah, you kind of really want to be considering using energy weapons because of that. But another thing is the crazy large magazine size on this thing, and the fact that unlike the Havoc, it fires immediately and then just kind of builds up a faster fire rate over time. Now, one of the great things with the Devotion is the time to kill on this thing is comparable with the other weapons in the top 10 list without a turbocharger. And then when you put a turbocharger on, even with the recent nerf, it still has the highest time to kill in the game in terms of just full auto weapons. So yeah, this thing's nasty. It's just ridiculous, and I hate to say it, but it's a top 3 weapon now, you know. And in fact, this armor change has just made it worse. It's made the Devotion even stronger. So yeah, consider using this weapon, and hopefully they'll nerf it soon so that the meta's changed again. Now, next up, we have the Prowler. I've ranked the Prowler higher than the Vault now because this extra magazine size is really going to count. It's really, really going to count at this point, right? Burst on this thing is incredible. I mean, it basically has no recoil. Full auto still has a very high DPS, which is comparable with the Burst, which some people don't really realize. But it's really this increased magazine size and the ability of it being an SMG, so you have fast reload, you have fast movement speed, you have great hip fire, that make it a very versatile option. And I actually kind of like the Prowler long range. Like, it's doable, you know, it's doable. So the Prowler is ranked higher than the Vault now and the Devotion, simply because of the combined values that it has a very decent magazine size for an SMG, a very fast reload time, which makes it better than the Devotion in that manner, and it has good aim down sight speed. Now finally at number 1 we have the Wingman. Once again, a very high damage per shot weapon, can be used long range with some practice, it has a decent damage per shot, and it's just the old reliable. It's the old reliable. It's always going to be a weapon that has 45 damage per shot that can just be spammed like this. It's insane. And once again, with pistols, when you aim down sights, you have the same movement speed as if you were hip firing. So you can just be like this, bam, 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 you know, very fast reload time. At long range, someone with a sniper is going to struggle to hit you because they're going to have bullet travel time to deal with. They're going to have to lead their shots. They're going to be moving very slowly because they're using a sniper whilst aiming down sights, whilst you're just kind of like, you know, firing randomly at will. Getting some shots here and there. You have tons of ammo because you've got a heavy weapon, not a sniper. It's nasty. It's nasty. And then you get up close, and this thing can be even more powerful as well. So yeah, Wingman's just going to be number 1 unless it gets a massive nerf, to be honest. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two about how the weapons are now. Leave your feedback below. Do you agree with these rankings? Do you disagree? Let me know. And I'll see you all in the comments. Cheerio! Did you know I stream almost every day from 7 PM UK time or 11 AM Pacific Standard Time? You can catch me live right here on YouTube, so make sure you have notifications turned on. I also have a new members program. Become a member for $2.99 a month, get your comments highlighted in videos, get a cool badge in live stream chat, get access to these cute emotes, and also gain access to my members tips videos, where you can ask me for any tips and I'll be making new videos weekly to help you improve your own game. Click the join button or click the link in the video description to get involved.